Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is time for the Pine Lehocky Eagles post-game show. I am Mike Missinelli with Derek Gunn. Seth Joyner, Devin Caney will join us later. They are now 7-0, another routine victory for the Philadelphia Eagles. Today, it was the A.J. Brown show. A.J. Brown just going off for the Eagles today. A bunch of touchdowns for big plays. Even Zach Pascal gets into the act. The Eagles actually scored one touchdown where they had to take a snap in the red zone, which shows you how efficient they were busting up the big plays. That's what they want to do. They're always talking about those impact plays. They did it again today. A rather routine victory for the Eagles. I'm not going to sit here and complain about anything. Guys, how you feeling?
You know, the interesting thing about this game was, you know, we've been spoiled so much to watch them run the ball effectively. And obviously they identified something early in this game where they knew that the A.J. Brown matchup, whoever they put him on, was a no contest. And I tell you what, Jalen Hurts was dropping dimes today, man. What an efficient passing game for Jalen Hurts on this day. The Eagles, we knew they would win decisively. I didn't think it would be this decisively, but the bottom line is they're 7-0 and rolling right now, Seth.
Well, listen, it's one of the more complete games, you know, that you would expect for them. You know, we expected for this team to win this football game. But they played good football all the way through this game, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Just consistent all game long. They didn't really run the ball as much as they normally do, but they still averaged, you know, over 4 yards a carry. So when they needed to run the ball, they ran the ball effectively. I think that, you know, this is the game that everyone has been waiting on the Eagles to put together, a complete game from start to finish. They scored in the first quarter. They came back. They scored 2 touchdowns in the second quarter. They scored in the third and the fourth quarters. So obviously the time off helped the coaching staff to figure some things out and figure out how to get a complete game. And I would assume, because I just know from experience, you know, no matter how good you play, you know, when you look at the film, there's some things that you know you missed. And no matter how bad you play, it's never as bad as you think it is. There's some things that you did good. But this is a good win coming off the bye for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, and you know, it's the same script. They seem to do it every week where they just load up on a team, they get ahead comfortably. Whenever a team makes a mini run, and the Steelers made the very mini of miniest runs, they answer with a 2-play touchdown, bang. And then in the second half, they say, we're not going to let you beat us with a big play. And Kenny Pickett had a decent day for a rookie. He made a lot of completions. But, you know, the Eagles are going to follow this script, Seth. And I know it sometimes irritates us that they don't get more aggressive, especially with a young quarterback. But they're in control so much of the time that maybe he's doing the right thing.
Well, listen, I don't have any issues with what they do on the offensive side of the ball, you know, until they get to a point where they get too pass heavy. But obviously they saw a matchup with A.J. Brown today that they thought that they could exploit. And they knew that Pittsburgh wasn't just going to sit back and allow Jalen Hurts to sit in the pocket and operate from the pocket. So they came at him, and every time they came at him, he hurt him. So I don't have a problem with that. You know, the issue sometimes can be, with me, is on the defensive side of the ball. Because you got a rookie quarterback who's just still learning, you know, the complexities of defenses at the highest level. And you don't come after him, you don't put pressure on him all day, you only blitz him one time. Yeah, I'm going to keep saying it because you know what? When after Jordan Davis got hurt and they had to go to their 4-man front, they got no pressure all day long.
What have I been saying all season? This 4-man front is not good enough to just get home against some teams. You look at the defensive front like Buffalo's. They can 4-man front you all day because their personnel is just that good. For as much money as that's invested in this Eagles 4-man front, I don't understand why it doesn't do a better job on its own of getting pressure on the quarterback.
Well, I can tell you why, D-Gun.
Why is that?
Listen, they don't have the premier outside rusher. That's the first thing. You might have it in Hassan Reddick, but I've been saying even when they signed him, he's a good pass rusher.
Yes.
Maybe above pass rusher.
Yeah.
But he's not an elite pass rusher. An elite pass rusher is a guy that you have to worry about every single down, okay? Now, he's going to get his sacks. After 7 games, he's got 5.5 sacks. That's pretty darn impressive.
Absolutely.
Okay? But the leaders had 6 sacks after 4 games. Those are the elite level guys. And because they don't have that elite level outside guy, that puts the pressure on everybody else. Then when you have to go to the 4-man front, the problem is when you go 4-man, that means that somebody's got to be double. And when somebody's double, if those guys on the outside don't win, or if they kick out and help on the guy on the outside, and somebody doesn't win their one-on-ones, then you got a problem. You know, so especially if you're going to sit back and you're going to play zone behind it, now you give a young quarterback time to decipher what's going on in front of him and pick it apart.
All right.
I say this every week. You're not wrong. But I can't sit here and play, well, what about later? You know, I just, the way this team handles their business every
they
week.
find a way to win.
Mike, you better prepare for later.
My-
Because the thing is,
you're presuming that the same thing is going to happen later if they play a good team. Now, I don't know who that good team is. I assume it's Dallas. Maybe it's the Giants. I don't know. Green Bay comes out of nowhere. I don't know who it is.
What did I say from the beginning of the year? I said, I watch how a team plays over the long haul, because what? The future habits, the past habits are a future preview of what you're going to see down the road, and we're still seeing the same thing. So let's say that we get to a Christmas Eve against Dallas, and Dallas is rolling, and we got to have that game, okay? You're going to tell me that mode of operation is going to win you games against that offense if they're rolling and they're 100%?
I don't know if it is or not. What I can tell you here is that you're right about today. You would think with a young quarterback that he would put a little more heat on him. But I think that Jonathan Gannon looks at this and goes, we are so in control of every game that I'd be stupid to allow a big play to get them back in the game. So maybe the script changes. Maybe when you need to blitz an Aaron Rodgers or you need to blitz a Dak Prescott, he will do that, because he didn't blitz at all today.
He blitzed one time.
CJ Gardner-Johnson
we've
got
seen
home.
him blitz before a lot more than he did today. You're right. It doesn't make sense.
What's the definition of a lot more?
Well, there are times when he's blitzed
They've never been over 14% blitzing in a game, ever. Ever.
But more than one.
Ever.
More than one.
Ever.
Okay.
Do you know where that ranks you?
I get it.
Do you know where that ranks you in the NFL?
I get it. My point is they have blitzed more than one time, and I don't know what's going to happen against a good quarterback. I really don't. It doesn't make sense they wouldn't blitz Pickett. I get it. But look, it's 35-13. They win the game, and whenever the other team makes whatever kind of run, they've got an answer, and they just run and hide again.
Nobody's debating whether the fact that they won or not. This is a game that they won. We expected for them to win. Okay, I expected for the offense, to be able to score like this, because the Pittsburgh defense is really not that good. What I really expected was for Jonathan Gannon to take an opportunity against a young quarterback and a struggling offense with a bad offensive line to turn up some heat and work on some of his pressures. There were plenty of times where you got 2nd and 10, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 15, where you could come. And sometimes it's not so much just about the pressure. Football is a field position. It's a real estate game. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Even if you have to punt. They only punted twice today. Yeah. But even if the offense is having a bad day, and I guarantee you somewhere along the line, the offense is going to struggle, and they're going to need the defense to carry the day.
I can't argue with that.
So when you start talking about – wait a minute. Let me finish.
Go ahead.
When you start talking about football is a real estate proposition, okay? When you go sticks and you give up 13 of the 14 is necessary for a first down, now all of a sudden, guess what you've done? You've taken 13 yards away from your offense when the ball is punted in the other direction.
Derek, 17 sacks coming in. Their pressure rate was 28.9%. That's not terrible. So I got to think that the defense coordinator is looking at that and says, we're okay there. Maybe I could blitz a little more. Hargrave got home today. Hargrave was a beast today. So,
yes, he was.
Yeah, so, I don't know. We keep talking about that he's got to be more aggressive. And I go, show me a team where that lack of aggression is going to really hurt him. You're saying, I don't want it to get to that point. I want preventive maintenance. That's what you're saying, right? I look at it and go, they don't need, like, I'm sitting there and complain about it when they don't need it right now.
Hey, D-Gun, part of good defensive coordination is giving the other team's offensive coordinators a bunch of stuff to prepare for it, okay? So if I don't have much in my blitz package, we're not worried about it that much because they don't blitz.
I can't argue.
I sit here, and I'm going to sound like a politician because I want to appease everybody. You make a valid point. When you look at what they've done through the first 7 games defensively, no matter how much real estate they give up, they find a way to shut it down. They are plus 13 in the takeaway department. You know, that's far head and shoulders above everybody else in the National Football League. They make a necessary stop when they have to. They get an occasional sack when they have to. But with this offense playing the way it is, and Seth, you're right. Would we like to see more consistency in terms of turning up the heat on quarterbacks? Absolutely. But when you look at who they were playing today in a Kenny Pickett, did you really worry about a Kenny Pickett coming into this game? Even if he got on the road, were you worried about a Kenny Pickett beating you in any way, shape, or form? Absolutely not. You know, listen, he's going to grow in a lot of ways.
I'm not worried about him being able to beat us, but what I do know is the kid has the ability to make all the throws. Okay?
Right.
So when you
and he's got a good collection of receivers.
So when you get up in a game like this, and let's say you're 14 to 17 points behind, things can turn like that. Okay? They can turn like that. And you stand back, you play your 4-man rush. To our point earlier, the 4-man rush is just not dominant or good enough, okay? And the kid stands in the pocket and gets confidence to throw the ball, and he's moving the ball all up and down the field.
Right. And to that end, that's probably why they got Robert Quinn, who did play today and wasn't very effective, but they probably see the same thing you see. At least Howie Roseman sees the same thing you see. But sometimes I think we have a tendency, and by we I mean you, have a tendency to have a 7-0 Rolls Royce, and you lament the fact you don't have a Ferrari that you're driving.
And listen, you want to know one of the greatest things, and we talked about it in pregame. One of the greatest things that plagues athletes is complacency. When you get to a point where you're satisfied, okay? I tried not to ever in my career get satisfied with where I was, no matter how good I played. I always knew that there was another level, and I was always searching for another level, okay? Because that complacency will do you in, especially when you're 7-0. You know, to think that you've arrived, that you've done everything that you can do, okay? We're like getting to that place now with this football team that if they win 10, 11, 12, 13 games, okay, and they go into the playoffs and they don't go to the Super Bowl, what are we going to be saying?
No, I got it. D, listen, I'm not disagreeing with his points at all.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, like, if you're also a player, you're so used to being in control here, and you were so much better in this team, you could see it, that natural complacency, I think, sets in. And it set in before this year because they've been so much better than the opponent they played. I almost want them to be in a struggle so I can see a little more personality of what you're talking about.
I just want them to dominate because I think that they're too damn talented on the defensive side of the ball.
You didn't think today was a domination?
Well, hey, listen, it was dominant, but, I mean, you could have made them go to Mitchell Trubisky, okay? To me, that's what great defense is about. Okay, now you couldn't get there. You can't get there the way that we used to get there. The way that we used to get there, we're going to put you out of the game and find out what your backup can do. Okay? The way that they show dominance is put pressure, force turnovers, and make Tomlin make the hardest decision right now to go back to Mitchell Trubisky because guarantee you they don't want to play him another snap this year. But if this kid would have thrown 4 touchdowns and fumbled the ball twice today because you applied that kind of pressure, at some point he would have had to put Mitchell Trubisky back in the game.
I think when we look at this Pittsburgh Steelers team, the only way to go back to Trubisky is if Kenny Pickett gets hurt.
I agree.
They've identified a few weeks ago that they have to start preparing for the future. And by preparing for the future, they got to take some lumps along the way.
I get it.
They have a good collection of receivers. They don't have anybody to deliver the goods right now. But that's part of the process. Every team goes through this. When you make the transition from a 15, 20-year vet like they had in Ben Roethlisberger to now turning over the reins to what they feel is the heir apparent for their team, they're going to take some lumps.
You also have veterans on the team that are looking at the head coach of the organization sideways.
Absolutely.
Like, how long can you allow this kid to stay in here and throw 4 interceptions a game?
The script, listen, the script has been written. It's like so plain right now. What we see the script is they get a big lead. They dominate whoever they're playing. They go, we can't allow big plays to let them back in the game. If they marginally get back in the game, we've got something in our pocket that'll pull us out and give us the big lead again. Now, would that lead to complacency? I don't know. To your point, maybe it will lead to complacency against a good team. But so far, we can recognize the script that has led them to 7-0. They haven't been touched. And that mindset is the only way this team can get back in the game is if we let them get back in the game. And the only thing that lets them get back in the game is a big play. That's what I think Jonathan Gannon's looking at.
Yeah, but I mean, hey, listen, man. Football is such a complimentary game. That's why when we sit and we watch the game together, we're watching the return game, we're watching the coverage game on special teams, and, you know, I ain't got no hair, so I pluck mine with tweezers. You know, that's how you know absurd it is to really watch, you know, what they do on special teams. You know, the best thing that they got going on special teams is Jake Elliott. Other than that, you know, we're just waiting for it to implode at any moment. But the game is complementary, okay? The defense has to complement the offense has to complement the defense, and the special teams, you know, has to do its job. When one of those two phases are lacking, it's time for the special teams to step up and carry, you know, the two-thirds to contribute to that two-thirds of the load. They just can't be a problem. So if you choose to be more aggressive and your offense is operating as efficiently as they were today, okay, what's that? 20 carries for 111 yards, okay? 20 of 30 for 290 yards and 4 touchdowns. That tells me that the offense is operating, you know, proficiently. So even if I do take a chance, guess what? My offense can get it back, you know? But to operate from a position of fear that, oh, I'm afraid that we might give up a big play. Come on, man. You can't live life that way, and you can't play sports that way.
I don't think he's afraid. I think he says it's foolish to give up a big play. Like, we're in control. 4 possessions, they get 3 touchdowns. And how do they get them? 39, 27, 29, bing, bing, bing. And now, if you're a player, you go, you know, we got this team, right? This team can't measure up today with us, right? It's a natural inclination, whether it's from a fan or whether it's from a player. Am I right?
Okay, so I'm going to end it right here because you know what? Everybody's going to be bitching and complaining. And all we talking about is the defense not pressuring everybody. Then let's go over and let's talk some offense. I will say this, okay? The one thing about football, there are certain aspects of the game that you don't get to turn on and turn off. If it's not habitual, if you don't do it on a regular basis, when you need to do it, you can't just flip a switch and automatically it happens, okay? So you better learn how to start running some stunts out of your 4-man fronts. You better start running some blitzes out of your 4-man fronts and being creative, dropping safeties down in the box, rotating coverages, doing some different things, because if you don't, when you need to do it, and at the end of the year and into the playoffs, you're going to need to do it, it's going to be too late to conjure it up if you haven't already practiced.
Well, they ran a stunt early in the game, and it led to Hassan Reddick getting the first sack of the game for him. You know, and I understand what you're saying. You want to see more variety in a defensive scheme. But I think Jonathan Gannon told us last year when he said, I don't have a scheme, I have a philosophy. His philosophy is to keep everything in front of him. And whether we like it or not, it is what it is. We're going to be debating it again Thursday night because they're going to play another inferior opponent in the Houston Texans on Thursday night. It's going to be another lopsided type score, you know, and we're going to see probably the same thing. The bottom line right now, we're going to have to be content to a certain degree with getting to the finish line with way more wins than losses, maybe at the most 1 loss when you look at what's left on the schedule. They have 2 games coming up against the Giants, 1 against the Dallas Cowboys on Christmas Eve. I think those are the only 3 real matches they have left on this schedule.
Let's look at the mechanism of this game a little bit and how it transpired, right? Because they get to early on, they get the play action bomb to A.J. Brown. Minka Fitzpatrick, one of the best safeties in this league, right? And A.J. Brown goes up, and Minka didn't fight him, and that kicks it off. That big touchdown, Minka was just too passive on that play and allowed A.J. Brown to take it away from him, and boom, they're off and running. And then the Steelers come back with a very crafty play with Chase Claypool, who knew he was left-handed. They give him a little end sweep, and he throws a little pass for a touchdown. And then they come right back. Bam, another. Akilla Witherspoon got destroyed today by A.J. Brown. They give up another long touchdown, and then another one, 21-7. And it's like, okay, here we go. We're just a dominant team again.
You have to give the Eagles coaching staff a lot of credit for identifying early in this game what was the best matchup possible for them. Every week is somebody different. That's what I love about this offensive structure more than anything else. One week it could be the running game. Next week is Devontae Smith. The next week is Dallas Goedert. Today it was A.J. Brown's turn again. They identified that Pittsburgh had nobody in that secondary that could match up with A.J. Brown from start to finish in this game. They attacked it early. They dared Pittsburgh to stop it. Pittsburgh could not stop it. A.J. Brown's hand strength alone is impeccable. His hand strength, that first touchdown, he went up and took it between 2 defenders. His hand strength is incredible. He may not be the fastest guy out there, but I can't find many receivers in the game that are as physically strong as him. You can't match up against him one-on-one. He's got a quick burst. He will out-muscle you. You will not take the ball away from him. I mean, he's got like vice-like grips on his hands. He reminds me a lot of DeAndre Hopkins in terms of when you get the ball in the hand, you're not getting the ball away from him.
That was the matchup. They go, Witherspoon can't cover him in
no,
this situation. The only hope they had was Minka Fitzpatrick can come over the top
and they kept going
play.
back.
And when he came over the top, he didn't make the play. So they get off and run. And it was like these long touchdowns are just backbreakers. They just kill you. And the Eagles just executed a boom, 4 possessions. They got 3 touchdowns out of it. They're off and running. The Steelers get a flimsy field goal. The Steelers could not get the ball in the end zone. We knew it. They're not going to score a lot of touchdowns in this game. The defensive coordinator probably knew it as well. And even Zach Pascal gets into the act on a big play. They just big played him to death, and that's what they yearn to do every week.
See, listen, I'm going to give – we can talk about A.J. Brown. I want us to look at one Jalen Hurts because
tremendous
because this is the 7th game for them, week 8. Do you realize when we went into week 1 of this season, there were many people that were wondering out loudly whether Jalen Hurts could be the franchise guy, okay? And even coming into this game, people looked up and said, oh, my God, he's got 6 passing touchdowns and 6 rushing touchdowns. When you look at the top-tier quarterbacks, they all got double-digit, touchdown passes, So then you look at Jalen Hurts coming into this game today, and listen, the ball that Minka Fitzpatrick missed, he just misplayed it.
Yeah.
I mean, when you really stop and look at that ball, should have been intercepted.
It should have been.
And that ball that he threw, it really should have went to Devontae Smith on the under route, But Jalen Hurts just
throw
he put it up there for his guy to go get it.
Exactly.
All the other throws were in the breadbasket. Every last one of them.
You're absolutely right. Every touchdown throw he made was gold.